Welcome to the power of using logic to answer questions. This is part 1, the Excel if function using a single criteria. This tutorial will provide 3 examples using both text and numeric outcomes as a result of the logic being tested. Before we begin our 3 examples, let me break down the if function's parts to help better understand the if function itself. So, the if function is broken into 3 specific parts: the logic, the true outcome, and the false outcome. So the logical test defined is, this determines the result based on the criteria Excel is told to consider when determining whether true or false outcome exists. The true outcome defined is, if the outcome of the criteria provided is true, then this is the specific action you want Excel to take. False outcome. If the outcome of the criteria provided is false, then this is the specific action you want Excel to take. Alright, now that we've defined the 3 specific parts of an if statement, let's begin our 3 examples. Okay, so say you have a child and they would like to have a pet. And as a parent, we're thinking about, oh my God, what additional bills will be associated with buying a pet. So in our mind, we have 3 questions that we want to answer. One is, what pet is in at least 20% of the U.S. households or more? So we're just trying to find what is the most common pet. Question 2, which pet has the lowest vet bills? Because we're trying to keep the budget under control. And question 3, how often do the most expensive pets go to the vet? Alright, so we're going to use an if function to answer all 3 of these questions. Now, the if function itself has 3 parts. To implement the if function, it has 7 specific steps. So, step 1, go up to the Insert Function button, which is this FX up here, and click on it. This brings up the Insert Function box, and where it says Search for a Function, we're just going to type in if, and click Go. Now, we're going to make sure if is highlighted, and if so, we're going to click OK. Now, we defined the if function earlier, and I said it had 3 parts: logic, true, false. So the logic is our criteria that we need to use to determine the outcome of our question. So, on the first one, we want to type in a formula here, which we're going to use XLOOKUP. Now, if you don't have XLOOKUP as a version of your Excel, then you can also use VLOOKUP. And in the second question, we will use VLOOKUP as the way to answer it. So if the XLOOKUP doesn't work for you on this one, hold tight. We'll use VLOOKUP and you'll be able to figure out the 7 steps from it. Alright, so XLOOKUP, what we're going to type. We're going to add a parentheses. Then we're going to click on cell D14, and we're going to click F4 because we want the $sign only in front of the number 14, which locks it down to the specific row of 14. I'll put a comma. And then we're going to go to A4, A6, because we want to determine the pet. And we're going to push F4 so it locks down that cell range, comma. And then we're going to do the same thing for cell range B4 to B6. This gives us information on which animal is in what percentage of households. Then we're going to put a comma and then another comma, and we're going to close out parentheses. So that is the first part of the formula. However, we need to know which pet is in more than 20% of households. So we're going to do a greater than, and we're going to put 20%. So now that allows Excel to know that we only want a true response pulled back if an animal is in 20% of or more of U.S. households. So then we're going to go to true, and what we want to put here is yes. So I'm just going to type in the word yes because I want to show you something. So I typed in yes, but what you'll see over here is nothing came up. And the reason why is this is text result that we want to pull back. In order to have a text result, you have to put quotes around your text. Now it becomes activated, and it says that if it's true, we will pull back yes. So on our false result, we just want to put the word no. But again, we have to put the quotes, our text, end quote. Now it will say no. So let's click OK. So now this says that dogs are in more than 20% of U.S. households. So let's pull this across and see what other animals are. So we find out cats are in more than 20% of the U.S. households, but birds are not. So if we went back to our data set, we would see that birds are only in 3% of the households. So Excel, based off our criteria, has pulled back the information we requested. So those steps we just went through are the 7 steps needed to create an if function if we're going to use the insert function dialog box. All right, so as promised, we're going to, in question 2, we're going to use a VLOOKUP for our criteria, but we need to answer question 2. So what is it? Which pet has the lowest vet bills? All right, so let's go up to our function, insert function. We're going to type in if. We're going to go, highlight if it's not, it is, so we'll click OK. And now we're going to use VLOOKUP. All right, so what we're trying to find is which pet has the lowest vet bills. All right, so the criteria we need here is VLOOKUP. And if you're not familiar with VLOOKUP, what we need to do is we need to click on tell it what we want to find. So in this case, we want to find pet, a specific pet. So we're going to click on D14 again, F4, F4 to lock it down to that row. Then we want to do a comma. Now we need to tell it the cell range we want to use to find the answer. So we go up to our data set and we tell it A4 to H6, and we're going to click F4 to lock down that entire data range, comma. Then we need to tell it which column that we want to find the answer in. So the vet expenditure is in column H for what we want as our answer. So column A is 1, column B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, F is 6, G is 7, H is 8. So we want to put 8, comma, and then we want to put the word false. Close it out. The reason why you put false is because Excel only pulls back exact matches in a VLOOKUP if you say false. If you were to put true, it would pull back a match that is close if an exact match doesn't exist. So that's the first part of our criteria for our formula. So the next thing we have to do is we got to put there and go greater than, because we need to find out which pet has the lowest vet bills. So we want to find out what the lowest pet price is to be able to say that the other pets are more expensive. So greater than the min. Min just gives you the minimum value. So we're going to highlight cells H4 through H6. We're going to lock those down, and we're going to close out our parentheses. So now a true statement will come back based off this criteria. It's basically saying it's good. So we want to go to true and say what happens if true is done. And we want to put more expensive because we were asking for greater than the minimum value. And if it's a false statement, we want to put least expensive because it is not greater than the minimum value. And we want to click OK. And it comes back with more expensive for dogs. So we're going to pull this apart over. And now you have cats and dogs are more expensive and birds are the least expensive. Well, if we look at our data set, birds were $18 and both the cats and dogs are much greater than that. So we know that birds are least expensive. So now we need to do our third question, and we need to answer it. So our third question is, how often do the most expensive pets see the vet? What we want to do is we're going to use our outcome from question 2 to determine how often each pet sees the vet annually. All right. So we'll go up here to our FX insert button, type in if, click on go, make sure if is highlighted, click on OK, and now we're going to type in our criteria. So, like I said, we're going to use our second question to determine the outcome. So in this case, most expensive, we're going to click on D16, F4, lock it down, and we're going to say equals, and we're going to put more expensive. So it's telling us we need to find the word more expensive in cell D16, E16, and F17 as we're, or 16 as we're doing our criteria to determine true or false. In this case, we're starting with dogs. Then we're going to put in, we're going to go to our if it is true value. So in this case, we're going to put a formula in because we want a numeric result to come back, versus in the last two examples we've done text. So again, we're going to use a VLOOKUP only because not all versions of Excel have XLOOKUP available to use. And then we're going to go to dogs, and we're going to push F4 to lock it down to just row 14. So we had to push F4 twice. We're going to put a comma. Then we're going to go from column A to column F, because this is where the number of times a pet visits the vet in a year is. We're going to push F4 to lock down that cell range. And then, just like in the last one, we have to tell it which column number has the answer located. So again, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, F is 6. So we need to put a 6 right there. And again, we're going to put false. Lock it down. And we see our numeric value has been activated. Now we need to tell Excel what we want it to do if a false statement exists. And then we're going to combine this example, and we're still going to use text in this spot. So we're going to put least expensive and in quote. So now we have it activated over here, so we know we did it right. So in this example, we're going to come back with a numeric value if it is true and a text value if it is false. So we're going to click OK. So we have more expensive right here. So it came back with our numeric value of 2.4. We're going to pull this over, see what else we find. Cats, we listed as more expensive in the last one. It gave us a 1.3. And this one was least expensive in the last one, so it came back with least expensive. So we have answered 3 questions involving our pets to purchase potentially using the if function, all using 7 steps. Please subscribe and like this video.